When the Titanic struck the iceberg and chaos began to spread through the decks, the crew received orders to prepare the lifeboats. The familiar command was given: women and children first. One by one, the lifeboats were swung out over the freezing Atlantic, beginning on the port side. Few on board truly understood what was happening, and even fewer realized that the ship, once called unsinkable, was doomed. Over a century later, a box discovered in Titanic's archives revealed a lifeboat manifest that told the story in haunting detail. It wasn't just a list of survivors. Strange symbols appeared beside names: small crosses, question marks, and slashes. One name had a tiny X beside it, which historians now believe marked someone later found dead in an overturned lifeboat. But what shocked experts most wasn't who survived. It was how many lifeboat seats floated away empty that night. When Titanic left Southampton on April 10, 1912, she was the largest and most luxurious ship ever built. More than 2,200 people were aboard, including passengers and crew. Yet the vessel carried only 20 lifeboats, 14 wooden, 2 small cutters, and 4 collapsible ones, enough for just over half of those on board. The rest would have no chance. What makes this more tragic is that Titanic actually exceeded the law's requirements. Maritime regulations at the time were based on a ship's tonnage, not its passenger capacity. Her original design allowed for 48 lifeboats, but that number was reduced because too many would clutter the decks and spoil the ship's elegant appearance. Both the builders and Captain Edward Smith believed Titanic would stay afloat long enough for help to arrive in any emergency. Smith even said, "I cannot imagine any condition that would cause a ship to founder." That confidence vanished when, on April 14 at 11:40 p.m., Titanic struck an iceberg. Within hours, she would split in two and sink. At first, few passengers believed the ship was in real danger. The lights were still on, the band was playing, and the deck seemed steady. When officers ordered the lifeboats uncovered, confusion reigned. First Officer William Murdoch oversaw the starboard side, while Second Officer Charles Lightoller commanded the port. Both followed the rule of women and children first, but Murdoch allowed men in when no women were near, whereas Lightoller refused men entirely. This difference in judgment decided many fates. Passengers hesitated to board what seemed like fragile little boats hanging 80 feet above the ocean. Many felt safer staying aboard the Titanic itself. As a result, the first lifeboats left nearly empty. Lifeboat 7, which could hold 65, carried only 28 people. Lifeboat 6 left with just 24. Some crew feared the davits or ropes would snap if the boats were fully loaded, so they launched them half full to be safe. The hesitation cost hundreds of lives. Lifeboat 1, for example, departed with only 12 people aboard, 5 first-class passengers and 7 crew, leaving 28 seats empty in the middle of a catastrophe. That boat would later be called the Money Boat because one passenger, Sir Cosmo Duff Gordon, was accused of bribing crewmen not to return for survivors, though he was later cleared of wrongdoing. As the night went on, the sense of disbelief gave way to panic. Between 12:40 and 1:45 a.m., lifeboats were lowered one after another, but still rarely filled to capacity. Some women refused to leave their husbands. Others stayed behind thinking they would all board together later. On the lower decks, third-class passengers were trapped by barriers and confusing passageways. Many never even reached the boat deck. By 1:40 a.m., lifeboats 13 and 15 were launched dangerously close together, nearly colliding until a quick-thinking crewman cut the ropes with a pocket knife. Around 2 a.m., only the collapsible canvas boats remained. Collapsible C launched with J. Bruce Ismay, the White Star Line chairman, stepping aboard at the last moment. Collapsible D left minutes later as water began to sweep across the deck. The final two, A and B, never launched properly. Collapsible B floated away upside down, becoming a desperate raft for survivors clinging to its slippery surface, including Lightoller himself. Collapsible A drifted away half-flooded, carrying frozen bodies days later when found. At 2:20 a.m., Titanic gave her final lurch and disappeared beneath the waves, taking over 1,500 souls with her. Those left in the lifeboats listened to the screams of people freezing in the water. Few boats returned to help. Only 5th Officer Harold Lowe in Lifeboat 14 went back after transferring his passengers into other boats. He managed to rescue 4 people, but only one survived the cold. Others, like Quartermaster Robert Hickens in Lifeboat 6, refused to return, saying, "It's no use going back. They're all dead." In that same boat, passenger Margaret Brown, later known as the unsinkable Molly Brown, took charge, organizing rowing shifts and forcing Hickens to stay silent when he panicked. Her leadership helped keep everyone alive until rescue. At 12:25 a.m., Titanic had sent her first distress signal, which was received by the RMS Carpathia. Captain Arthur Rostron immediately turned his ship around, ordering all power diverted to the engines and pushing through icy waters at full speed. He arrived around 4 a.m., but by then Titanic was gone. Only wreckage and faint lights from the lifeboats remained. One by one, the Carpathia pulled survivors from the sea, beginning with Lifeboat 2 at 4:10 a.m. 4 hours rescue continued until the last boat, Lifeboat 12, was reached at 8:15. Aboard were 70 people and Second Officer Lightoller. In total, 706 survivors were rescued. More than 1,500 had perished. 4 people died shortly after being brought aboard and were buried at sea. Rostron then gave the quiet order to sail for New York, the destination Titanic never reached. When Carpathia docked at Pier 59 on April 18, 1912, the scene was overwhelming. Reporters and crowds waited for news. Survivors disembarked carrying grief and disbelief. With them came the lifeboats and a document that would become one of the most revealing records of the disaster, the Titanic Lifeboat Manifest. Created by Carpathia's officers and surviving crew, it listed all 706 rescued individuals, complete with details like age, gender, and residence. Yet this was no ordinary passenger list. It grouped people by lifeboat, allowing readers to see who had shared their escape. Next to some names were notes: injured, died after rescue, or a simple cross. One entry read DOA, dead on arrival. That man had been rescued alive but died before reaching land. Others had markings indicating uncertainty, grief, or confusion. Some lines ended abruptly, as if the writer could not bring themselves to finish. The numbers told a cruel story. Only 39% of first-class passengers died. In second class, 58% perished. But in third class, a devastating 76% were lost. Among men, roughly 80% died. Among women, only about 25%. Yet many third-class women and children never reached the deck at all. Locked gates, language barriers, and chaotic instructions trapped them below. The manifest quietly reflected these realities. One mother's name was followed by her 2 children's, but the father's line was blank. Another page listed a nurse and her patient, both saved, beside the name of a steward who had helped them before perishing himself. Among the 892 crew, only 212 survived.